Well, according to my rectal thermometer here, it is 65 degrees. That's the weather report. Now I'm going to try to explain something else here. I know I've explained this a few times before. Can I explain it again? Let's see if I can. Let's get a nice new piece of paper. What I did this morning with a little bit of heat provided by that little candle was I arranged slightly heat set the feed and nib on this pen, because as I was looking through my wall Eversharp drawer, I found this, and it had a lovely flexible nib. But because the pen is short, I wanted to put a stub nib in it, stubbier nib. So now it has a stub nib, and in my world, to help me remember where nibs are located, I put quite often stub nibs in stub pens. I do it for two reasons. Number one, because they seem to make sense to me to have a stubby nib in a stubby pen. Logic, I'll call it logic. And the other one is feel. When I use a stub nib, I like the weight of the pen to be more forward. Somehow it makes my hand make these sort of lettering better than if I had it in a longer pen where the weight is further back. There's something about a short pen in a stub nib in terms of its weight that makes sense. You think I'm talking a bunch of crap, don't you? I probably am. I quite often do. But this is what I want you to do at home. Chances are, if you're a pen collector of any stripe, you have a number of, let's say, number 2 sized Waterman pens, and or maybe number 2 sized Walt Eversharp pens, or I'm trying to think of another company that uses a number 2 sized pen in a number of their models, and it's hard. Parker, early Parkers might do that, but Waterman is the best one to try this experiment with, because almost everyone probably has versions of these pens. Okay, where's my paper? Love that sound. It could be just by shaking it and turning it slow, it would be the thunderstorm sound. Okay, can I move my coffee out of the way? Can I move the cap of the ink away? So all of these pens, this is a 52.5, long and thin. Here's a, actually I think this is a weirder one. This is a 52.5 V. I want a 52.5. Just a minute. Now let's throw while we're at it, let's throw come on, 52.5, you have to be here somewhere. We'll throw one of those in just for shits and giggles. $52.5. No. God. can't I find my kingdom for a 52 and a half? Okay, this will do. It's a 52 and a half. It will do. It is a 52 and a half. There is a Santa Claus. So, and we also have one that has metal on it, and we have one that has metal on it that's short and thin. We have one that has no metal on it that's a slip cap. Number 12 size pen. This might be a 14, well, whatever. All of these pens, we'll just pretend that's not a 14, that this is a 12. We don't have to pretend. Is this a 12? Yes, a 12. So all of these have in their, under the hood, they have a number 2 sized nib. Not all of them can be interchangeable, but let's pretend that they are. Some nibs are finer and more flexible and thinner in cross-section than others, but the difference is the length of the barrel, the thickness of the barrel, so it can be short and thin, or long and thin, or short and fat, or long and fat. Where's my long and fat one? These are the fat ones, the fat boys. These are the thin ones, short and long. Let me just do it this way. And maybe what you should do is figure out a way to label them all on your notebook so you know which nib came from which pen. But what I want you to do is switch them around and see if you can sense that there's a difference in how you write a word or draw a picture or do whatever you do with your pens based on the proportion of the cap and barrel. And you can even do it more by writing with it posted or not posted. So how different does it feel to you in your hand to write with this pen with the sterling overlay versus this one without the sterling? This is a lighter pen, so that's, you should be able to feel that readily. Will that change how you make a mark on the page? The balance, the point of balance, is very different on this pen than this pen. So that, if I'm holding this pen in my hand, the center of balance is more forward than it is when I'm holding this one in my hand. So there's a little tiny bit of force pushing back on the back of the pen, lifting up on the nib. So that should, if you're a sensitive lad or lass, if you're sensitive to how the pen writes, you should sense a difference. The same thing with a pen that's fatter in your hand than one that's thinner in your hand. This pen and this pen are the same length. One is thinner in your hand, and you should by holding it differently with your muscles and your brain, there should be a difference. Now, so let's say you have both of these pens, or maybe one that maybe is more well, yeah, we'll try both of these pens, both of them. You know, write with this one with its nib in it. Come up with a word that maybe describes how this one writes. Number 1. And then this one, How does this one write? Number 2. And this, you might come up with an adjective, adverb, or as much as you like. Not about how the nib writes necessarily, but how it writes, how the pen feels in your hand. Then do a nibectomy, a nib transplant. Switch these around by gently pulling them out like you're pulling a tooth. And I haven't done this on these pens for a while. I switched them around, and clearly they will feel different to you. They have to feel different if you're a sensitive lad, because each of these nibs are different from each other, and each of the pens are different from each other. And you might find that this nib that was in the long fat pen works better for you in the short stubby pen, the short skinny pen. Yes, there is a difference in feeds. Yes, there's a Santa Claus. Yes, there are other factors involved, perhaps, but you may find that you're indifferent to this nib in this pen. Or you're perfectly happy with it in this pen, and you try it out, and okay, can we get it in the ink? Thank you. You might say, oh gee, this is a beautiful pen, and then you take it out of this thing and put it in a different pen, a shorter or fatter pen, or a pen covered in sterling silver that's a little heavier, and you say, oh my God, that nib sings to me now. And it's not because the nib changed. The nib is exactly the same. But this has changed in the back. And it's again the same, it's the difference between, you don't change physically when you're wearing a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans that's really, really old. You're relaxed, you're casual, you're messy, you're sloppy. Your feet are up on the coffee table. You're relaxed. You put your same body, your body hasn't changed. You put it in a starched shirt, buttoned with a tie, and there's something about putting your feet on the table that something tells you not to do that. You haven't changed. The nib hasn't changed, but because it's wearing a different outfit, as it were, you might see it differently. You might see it as casual, or you might see it as rude. You know, if I saw someone with a pair of sweatpants on and a sweatshirt with his bare socks on the coffee table, I would say, he looks comfortable. If I saw a man wearing an expensive suit with expensive shoes with his feet on the table, I would say, he's rude. Might be the same person, same coffee table, but it will feel different to you. So try that out with your number 2 Waterman collection. Get all your number 2s in a pile. If I did that, I'd have, God, I don't know, 500 pens. I'd have a hell of a lot of pens. And I would say this short, stubby, slightly scratchy. I think this nib is worn down. This is not a loop, no matter how hard I try. This is a loop, and there is iridium on it. Doesn't feel like there is, but there is. This nib really works well in this short pen because it's kind of like a stub. But it's this pen is heavy. Yeah, I know it has frou-frou on it, suggesting delicacy, but it really, all of the weight, if this is the fulcrum, almost all of the weight is forward. If this is the same fulcrum, now there's a lot going on back here, and that's going to make a difference in how your pen nib hits the paper. But I'm just curious, if you have two number 2 sized nibs in a Waterman or a Wall Eversharp, the number 2 nib fit in this pen, it fit in the longer pen, it fit in hard rubber pens, it fit in plastic pens. Number 2 Walls fit all over the map. Number 2 Parkers might. Number 2 Schaefers are a different kettle of fish. You might have a hard time finding Schaefer pens that are as easily changeable. Yes, feather touch nibs could be in a short pen, in a skinny pen, and a long pen, but they're not as easy to deal with. Try it with a Waterman. You can try it with Esterbrook's too. Esterbrook's have nibs that screw in and out easily. They're meant to do that. But Esterbrook's didn't really have that many different... Their sizes weren't as different as these are. They made thinner and slightly shorter, slightly thinner pens. But you won't see the variety as you do with Waterman or Wall. Write your answers below. I'd like to know how this worked for you. You can do it with Skylines, kind of, not really. Ignore that. Bye.